I want you to think about something for a second. Two people, same job, same income, same discipline. Both invest $200 a month. Both put it into the same index fund, same 10% average annual return. That's what the S&P 500 has delivered since 1926, by the way, not a number I made up. The only difference, one starts at 22, one starts at 32. Now, what do you think the gap looks like by retirement? Most people I ask say double, maybe triple at the most. They figured 10 years is 10 years. You lose a bit of ground, you make it up later. Here's what actually happens. Investor A starts at 22, invests $200 a month until 60. Final number, roughly $1.06 million. Investor B starts at 32, same $200 a month, same fund, same everything. Final number, $404,000. Same money, same discipline, completely different life. The gap? $656,000. That's not a rounding error. That's a second retirement. That's options. That's freedom. That's the difference between choosing when you stop working and being told when you have to. I call this the decade tax. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what it means for your life. Not just the math, but what it actually does to your choices, your retirement, and your stress levels. And more importantly, if you're already starting on the later side, I'm going to show you the exact 3 moves to start closing that gap today. Stay with me. This gets real. Before we go any further, I need to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Investing for beginners, and I say this with full respect, almost always skips the most important part of compound interest. Everyone explains the formula. Almost nobody explains why it feels invisible until it's too late. Here's how it actually works. You invest $200 in January. By December, that $200 has earned a return, let's say 10%. So now you have $220. In year 2, you're not just earning on the $200 you put in. You're earning on the $220 and then on whatever that grows to and on and on. The first few years, honestly, underwhelming. You barely notice it. That's why so many people quit. But here's the thing about compound interest. It's not linear, it's exponential, meaning the growth isn't steady. It's slow at the start and then it accelerates. The last 10 years of a 38-year investment journey contribute more to your total than the first 20. That's the brutal irony of the decade tax. The 10 years you lose at the beginning aren't just 10 years of contributions you missed. They're the 10 years that would have compounded the hardest, the years when the snowball was small enough to push. Once you miss that window, you're not just behind, you're trying to outrun a snowball that's already rolling. And now, most people watching this are somewhere between 28 and 38, which means the question isn't academic, it's real and it's urgent. Let me show you exactly what starting late costs beyond the spreadsheet.
Here's where I want to push back on something. Because every start early video acts like your 30s are a financial graveyard. Like if you didn't open a brokerage account at 22, you've basically already lost. I don't think that's true. And I want to be honest with you about why. In your 20s, most people invest without a real reason. They do it because a podcast told them to, or their friend set up an account and they felt left out. They pick an index fund because they read a Reddit thread and it seemed fine, but they don't actually know what they're building toward or why. And that matters more than people think. When you don't have a why, your investment is fragile. Market drops 20%, you panic sell. Life gets expensive, you pause contributions. Shiny new thing appears, you redirect the money. Here's what most people have at 32 that they didn't have at 22. A reason. A family they want to protect. A number in their head that means, I never have to worry again. A business idea they want to fund. A retirement that looks like something. Actual vacations, actual peace. Not just grinding until their body gives out. That clarity, when you act on it consistently, is powerful. People who invest with a real purpose stay invested. They don't sell when the market drops. They don't cash out for a holiday. The why works when discipline doesn't. But, and I want to be straight with you, clarity doesn't fix the math. The gap is still real. The decade tax is still owed. The question is whether you start paying it back now or whether you wait another year and make it worse. More on the payback plan in a minute. First, let's talk about the costs you won't find in any calculator. The compound interest gap is real, but it's not the most dangerous part of starting late. What's harder to see, and honestly harder to talk about, are the life consequences, the things that don't show up in a retirement calculator but show up everywhere else. I call these the 3 invisible costs. Cost 1, the options gap. When you have a decade of compound growth behind you, something changes that has nothing to do with money. You get options. You can take a job that pays less but actually feels like something. You can take a year to build a business without it needing to work immediately. You can say no to the promotion that comes with 60-hour weeks because you're not desperate. When you don't have that cushion, those options don't exist. You're not working because you want to. You're working because the rent is due, and the savings aren't there. Then you can't afford to blink wrong. That's not freedom. That's a very expensive trap that most people never realize they're in. And here's the brutal part. The trap is invisible when you're in it. You're just working hard. You're just being responsible. You're just not there yet. But without the investment base, you never get to there from here. Cost 2, the emergency trap. This one is underrated. People who start investing late usually have no real financial buffer, so when life hits, and it will hit, a medical bill, a job loss, a family emergency, a car repair that costs twice what you thought, they don't just pause, they undo. They drain the account they just spent 3 years building, and then they start from zero again, and the cycle repeats. People who started early, same emergency hits them, but there's a layer underneath. The long-term investments are already working in the background. The emergency doesn't erase them. It just slows the contributions for a while. That's the difference between a setback and starting over. Think about that for a second. Not every financial problem is caused by bad decisions. Sometimes life just costs more than expected. But without the right foundation, even normal life events become catastrophic. If this is landing for you, and I think it is, hit that like button. It tells me to keep making these, and it helps more people find this video. Cost 3, the retirement math. Here's the part people really don't want to hear. If you start at 32 and retire at 60, you have 28 working years for your money to compound. Start at 22 and retire at 60, you have 38 years. Simple math, right? But here's what that difference actually means in practice. 10 fewer years of compounding, as we already saw, costs you over $650,000 in real wealth, which means to retire at the same lifestyle, you either need to retire later, contribute significantly more each month, or accept less in retirement. That can mean working 5 to 7 extra years before you can realistically stop. Not 10 extra years, 5 to 7, because of what you'll have accumulated either way, but still 5 to 7 years of your life. Years when you might have less energy, less health, less patience. Years you could have spent differently. That's the decade tax in its most honest form. And I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this because you can still change it, but only if you start now. Hey, if you're new here, welcome. Genuinely glad you found this channel. This is what I do here. I break down money in plain language. No hype, no shortcuts, no one trying to sell you a course at the end. Just the things that actually move the needle when you're trying to build real wealth from the ground up. If that's the kind of content you want to see more of, hit subscribe right now. It's free, and I put these out regularly. Now, let's get into the part that actually matters, because knowing the problem isn't enough. You need to know what to do next. If you're starting in your 30s, here's the honest truth. You can't buy back time. No one can. But you can buy back some of the math, and done right, you can close a meaningful portion of the gap without doing anything dramatic. I call this the 30s recovery stack, 3 moves in order. Move 1, increase the contribution, not just the timeline.
The most common mistake I see from people who start late is they invest the same amount they would have invested at 22 and then feel frustrated that the growth doesn't match what they hoped for. The math changed when you delayed, so your contribution needs to change too. Going from $200 a month to $400 a month doesn't just double your outcome. Because of compounding, it accelerates the trajectory in ways that are hard to visualize until you see them. Here's a simple way to think about it. You're not trying to replicate what the 22-year-old did. You're trying to get as close as possible to where they'll end up. That means contributing more per month and starting now, not next month. Your first step, figure out your actual monthly investment capacity, what you can genuinely move without touching your rent or your emergency fund. Then, find one expense, not 5, just one, that you can redirect. One subscription you don't use, one dinner out a week you swap for cooking, one thing. Redirect it to your investment account tonight. Small number, real commitment. That's how it starts. Move 2. Make tax-advantaged accounts the priority. This one is probably the most underused tool in personal finance for people in their 30s. If you're investing through a regular account and paying full tax on your returns every year, you are leaving money on the table. The amount isn't trivial. Over decades, the tax drag on an unprotected account can cost you as much as another decade of contributions. A pension fund, a retirement account, your country will have its own equivalent. That's where your money should go first. The tax savings compound just like the investment does, which means you're not just protecting your gains, you're growing faster on every dollar. If you're not sure what accounts are available to you, your country, your employer, your specific situation, that's worth a proper conversation with a financial advisor. The specifics matter here, but the principle is the same everywhere. The government gives you legitimate ways to reduce your tax bill when you're saving for retirement. Use them before they close. Move 3. Automate it so willpower doesn't have to work. Here's the psychology piece, and it's the most important one. Your 30s are busy in a way your 20s weren't. More responsibilities, more people depending on you, more decisions, more fatigue, more things competing for your money and your attention. Which means, if your investment strategy depends on you remembering to transfer money, being in the right mood, having a great month, not being distracted, it will fail. Not because you're disciplined, because discipline is a battery. It dies around 5 p.m. on a Tuesday when you're tired and the grocery bill was higher than expected. Systems don't have bad days. Set up one automatic transfer, on payday or the day after, before you see the money, before you spend the money, before your brain starts finding reasons not to. What you never see, you never miss, and what runs automatically runs on the months when you're stressed, when you're tired, when life is messy and expensive and hard. Right now, pause this video, log into your bank, set up one automatic transfer to your investment account, even if it's $50, even if it feels embarrassingly small. Start the system tonight, because the system is what turns intent into results. Here's what I want you to walk away with. The best time to invest was 10 years ago. That's true. The numbers are clear. The decade tax is real, and it's expensive. But the second best time is right now, not Monday, not after the next paycheck, not when things calm down, because they won't calm down. There will always be a reason to wait one more month. Starting in your 30s isn't ideal, but it's not a sentence either. The gap is real, but it is closable, especially if you increase your contribution, put it in the right accounts, and automate it so it doesn't depend on your willpower or your mood. I've seen people start at 35 and retire with more than people who started at 22 and stopped every time the market moved. Consistency is the variable that most people underestimate. Compound interest rewards patience more than timing. The people who end up with real financial options in their 50s and 60s aren't always the ones who started earliest. They're the ones who started seriously, whenever that was, and didn't stop. That can be you, but it has to start now, not in theory, now. If this video was useful to you, and I hope it was, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this, and it takes you about half a second. And subscribe if you haven't already. I put these out regularly, and I keep it plain language and practical. No fluff, no filler.
Drop this in the comments. I read every single one. What age did you start investing, and what do you wish you'd known sooner? Seriously, I want to know. Some of the best conversations on this channel happen in the comments. Thank you for watching. Genuinely. Now go set up that automatic transfer.